Old school, right?
Yeah, we'll see what this is doing today.
Using Restream in the new Addict Athlete podcast YouTube studio.
Here we are.
The first official one anyway, right?
Yeah, live where people can kind of see where we're at.
Yeah.
Yep, we're on.
Max, it's working.
We're live.
Technology at its finest, ladies
Let
and
us know
gentlemen.
if the sound is working. Good. You guys can hear us.
If you guys can hear us okay. If not, then maybe we'll see if we can get this transcribed so you can just read it, right?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Here we are, one-on-one live with Coach Blu and
Yeah.
Marissa today.
Athletes, welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu and our athletic director, Marissa Robinson.
Happy to be here.
It's good to be here. We got Max in the back studio here helping us get all the stuff ready to go. Yeah, kind of excited for our new location, Marissa.
Yeah.
I know we say that a lot, but my gosh, it's
been a long time coming.
My
still
gosh.
working out some kinks, but I think it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How amazing is this wall? You guys see that's our soundproof red and black wall.
We actually have an on-air sign out there, so if anybody walks in, I'm sure that they'll completely ignore it and start knocking on doors. Right?
Meaning they didn't read.
Yeah,
I guess.
And we will, again, a little disclaimer out here, because we're in a building that's kind of being worked on.
It's under construction.
If you hear banging and knocking, it's not a ghostly apparition. It's actually people next door to us remodeling an office space for a new tenant. So
yeah,
no worries there. But welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu. You guys are so excited to have you here. This is our weekly, podcast / meeting for you to ask questions pertaining to addiction recovery, mental health, family relationships. Blu Robinson here, licensed mental health therapist and addictions counselor.
Marissa Robinson, certified recreational therapist.
Recreational therapist, you get to have all the fun, man. It's like you get to play for your job.
Yes.
It's a little more involved than that, is it not?
Well, for Addict Athlete, as the administrator, it is a little more involved than just the play.
That's awesome. Let's give you guys a little bit of background to Athlete is and what we do. This was a team that we established a little over 11 years ago now, as a method for people to kind of use it as a mechanism and modality for recovery. And I really think it's kind of a neat thing, because when we started at it, a lot going on in the recovery world. We had the 12 steps, and that was kind of it. And in the 12 steps, it kind of compartmentalized itself into AA, NA, CA, all the other AAs things.
Yeah, just sit down, support group.
And it worked, and it was great, right?
Yeah.
But we decided to do something a little bit different and to use the metaphor erase and replace. And Marissa, how would you best describe erase and replace?
So the main point is to erase negative behaviors and replace them with positive, healthy coping skills, specifically healthy recreation, because I'm the recreational therapist, and that's also the way you got sober, is by erasing your addiction and replacing it with mountain biking and running and triathlons. You've done cycling, lots of road, lots of other things too. So it's an active method of any kind of positive change, right?
Yeah.
Take away the negative behavior and replace it with something positive.
It can. And what we found is that it started to work for people so much that they felt that concept of turning the mess into the message was achieved by stepping out of the world of anonymity, by being able to not be ashamed of their histories, and to utilize the things and principles that they're learning as mechanisms of growth and change, and to not keep them hidden.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes anonymity, I get it and I understand it. I'm just kind of under the impression and viewpoint that in this day and age, anonymity can hurt you. Yeah. And I get it. And the old traditions, those are fine. And I wouldn't knock them.
It made sense years and years ago, and for some people in certain scenarios, but I think for most people, we don't want to be anonymous, because that's how, to me, we bring about change. That's how we connect with other people, is being able to share our stories, for the other people to go, wow, I'm not alone in this, because I just heard so-and-so's been through this, and maybe I can ask them from some experience and ideas. And let alone, I think it's the secrets that keep us sick. So if we talk about them and say them out loud, they're not scary anymore.
Yeah. Well, and you're a recreational therapist by profession. And I know the listeners, you've heard maybe some of us talk about these concepts and principles about movement equals healing, and why it's important to make sure that we are, as adults, continuing to express some, I guess, reduction in depression and anxiety, getting out and moving and participating in sports, in nature. Marissa, why do you think so many put that kind of stuff on the back burner once life begins to take over? Why do you think most people forget how to play?
Because there's so many other things that are just more important that
Mhm.
you feel or think that you need to do, rather than sometimes recreation and leisure kind of seem like the excess and what we want to do but don't have time to do. When it really comes down to it, it's something we need to do to stay healthy, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. It is a way to help and heal ourselves.
So, listeners, Addict to Athlete was developed through that premise and with that mindset. It's being able to get out and recreate, do it healthy, utilizing leisure time appropriately.
Mhm.
Let's face it, time when you were using, I love the way that Marissa puts this, it didn't happen when you were busy. It didn't happen when you're occupied by a hobby. It
Yeah.
happened in downtime.
Yeah. Well, addiction usually starts in free time. It doesn't usually start in the middle of math class or the middle of your shift at work. It slowly ends up progressing and getting worse and worse and taking over your free time, and then other things fall to the wayside, so school and things like that. But that's not where it starts. So when you get back to free, it's being able to structure that free time is so important for long-term recovery. It's being able to address boredom or triggers within that time so that you don't fall back into some of the negative behaviors and negative coping skills, whether that's substance abuse, whether that's self-harm, pornography, whatever it is that you're struggling with.
And what we noticed is that when we brought together the team component, meaning that no one finishes alone, you have a team behind you, we found great strength in people being more willing and more apt to allow a lot of different perspectives to influence their recovery.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is me being a mental health therapist and having the component about being able to help people process some of the heavier feelings and emotions
Yeah.
during a workout or during a run. We also have peer mentors who begin the process of being in an active recovery that then through time and experience and participation move into positions of like a team captain and even a coach.
Yeah.
And so Addict to Athlete's a peer-driven program. And the thing I've learned about that is it's not just on a one single day or one single event. What we find is that this team establishes itself for accountability, for guidance, for experience. And it's kind of a cool thing because once your home team gets developed, you're unstoppable because you have a team behind you. No one ever finishes alone. And I love that principle, Marissa, more than anything, because how many times in life have we heard people in recovery say, I did everything and I got lonely.
Yeah.
I've had to leave dysfunctional relationships. I've had to leave people that I've loved, and now I'm alone, and I don't like being alone. This team component helps you understand that you've got a safety net and you've got some accountability. And it's not just a mentor type situation where you call them on a phone like a sponsor would do.
Yeah.
It's grab your shoes, we're going for a run. Grab your shoes, we're going for a hike. We're going to go do something to replace that feeling of being isolated, alone, or potential relapse.
Absolutely.
So the reason that Addict to Athlete exists is for that simple premise, is to show the public at large that you're more than an addict. That's a part of you, not who you are. And I'm excited to share, as we move forward now, because we're 11 years deep into this,
Yeah.
and it's not like, sometimes we forget that there's a lot of new listeners that come on board that may not understand the premise. Early on in Team Addict to Athlete's inception, there was this thought that we would be erasing substance use, pornography, eating issues with sports and recreation, weightlifting. Not even close, right?
Yeah.
How important is balance in establishing your recovery, getting your life back?
Well, most people with addictive behaviors, whatever you're addicted to, struggle with balance. So it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something healthy, that's obviously better than using.
Completely.
But it still is going to cause damage and cause something if you're going overboard. It doesn't matter what it is. Moderation is so important, and it's very important for those in recovery to be able to learn moderation and learn balance. So if it doesn't, if they're all of a sudden becoming workaholics, is that really as helpful to their family or their overall life? Maybe for a time, but like long term, workaholic isn't helpful either. Same with somebody who's becoming crazy, overly driven into fitness and exercise. Like we've said before, something always has to give. So we have to be careful what it is. And being able to learn balance in all things is really helpful for long-term recovery. And so it helps with everything.
So what we kind of, I guess, set the premise for on Team Edit to Athlete is to get you in the mindset that it is your resistance to the what is that's causing most of your suffering. So in the terms of addiction recovery, if you're resisting sobriety, if you're resisting abstinence, if you're resisting relationships, what do you think is at the root of your suffering? So we lean into it, and it's not always easy because your happiness is allowing you to be okay with the what is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's not easy to wrap your head around. A lot of people are resistant to come to Team Edit to Athlete because they believe or think that they have to become world-class athletes.
Yeah.
That's just a result of what could possibly happen.
Yeah.
What it really
doesn't work
is
for everybody, but that's fine.
What it really is establishing yourself with a home team. Now, when you have a good, strong home team, you don't let the team, like addiction, come mess around with you on your home court when you're establishing sobriety, recovery, right?
Absolutely.
And so, there's an interesting thing that I've noticed. It's like, listeners right now, maybe there's one of you out there that's kind of contemplating, like it's time to throw in the towel, take a knee to addiction, and be done. And where you are right now, if you're listening to this, means that you're on the right path. Like literally, right now is a necessary step for what comes next. Yeah. And I think sometimes we get a little bit hard on ourselves when we feel like we should be further along. Maybe we have some recovery, some sobriety under our belt, but we're not further down that path.
Or we start comparing ourselves to others, which is so dangerous. That's all. You're never going to feel good about yourself if you compare yourself to others. There's always somebody that's, further along, more wealthy, more good looking, faster, stronger, whatever. So really just hear about comparing ourselves to today and what we were doing yesterday and improve. And that's it.
Well, and I think you have to be very specific about what you intend to do to move forward. And that's kind of hard to do too, because where do you start the journey? What is your starting line? A lot of us get in that mindset of like, I'm going to start on Monday. I'm going to quit smoking on Monday. Yeah. I'm going to stop using on Monday. I'm going to stop, overeating on Monday. And guess what happens? Monday never comes, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like a whole nother excuse. So I think that to set a foundation of your path to recovery, you've got to be very clear about what you're going to do within your next steps to start making this goal happen. Whether it's I'm going to reach out to a friend, I'm going to come to a meeting, I'm going to erase numbers on my phone that are connected to unhealthy people. You've got to get real specific. Yeah. And even if you don't know, sometimes, well, I don't even think we don't know. I think everyone knows what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I don't think anyone's walking around with their head in the clouds of like, I'm so ignorant. I have no idea what to do next.
I think sometimes it's just fear and not knowing how to do it. They know, yeah, you're right, what they should be doing or what they want to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that you can't change any kind of situations that you don't take responsibility for. And that's a hard one. So if we even started that as a premise to your starting of any kind of path to sobriety, you've got to take responsibility for where you are, which isn't always easy. And I think sometimes that catches us in that victim mentality where we kind of feel as though we want to blame people, situations, experience. We really can't. We've got to be able to be accountable to that kind of stuff, to be okay with maybe the residual effect of I don't know maybe how to take these next steps, but I'm going to be accountable for where I am right now. My best thinking got me here.
Yeah.
And that's not always the easiest concept, is it?
Best thinking. So maybe it's time to take some advice from someone else.
Well, last night we were doing a home-based meeting, and if you go back on the Facebook link, you can go back and watch it. We were talking about self-motivation. And I'm a firm believer that your attitude can really improve a situation or absolutely degrade it. And so looking at it and you have a negative attitude about what's going to happen, chances are that's what you're going to receive. And so that you being able to choose your path on this is about having an attitude that's like, it isn't super positive. It doesn't have to be super negative. It can just be even keel. It can actually be just kind of level and just see and experience it for what it is. Because no matter how bad things are, you can always make them worse or you can always make them better. That's why we hate the concept and term, it is what it is.
Yep. It's never is. Things never stay the same, right? Things are always changing and things can always be better and things can always be worse.
Yeah. And so I say this quite often with my athletes, my clients too. I say, that's a swear word in my book.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things. I saw a TikTok once that it's like this very serious voice saying, you never want to mess with a person that has it is what it is as a mind, because those people, and it goes on to try to swing a positive attribute to this, and it's not. If you are in an is what it is mindset, you're giving up. You've anchored yourself. You're not moving. You're surrendering. You're saying that no matter what happens, it can never be better and it can never be worse.
Well, and in every scenario, there's some scenarios where you may not have control but you always have control over attitude and how you want to look at the situation and ways you can figure out how to get away from it or around it or through it. There's always an option and there's always a choice.
Yeah. And so, we teach our athletes principles. We teach our athletes some things like other people's negativity isn't worth you worrying about it. And you'll see that when you start making changes, listeners. I find many people that make the commitment to themselves that they want to move away from active addiction, they're also surrendering people that want to keep it going. And they will do whatever they can to keep you there because the old situation, misery enjoys company, is very real. But also they don't want to be abandoned either. And so I don't think it's just moving away from negative people. It's like they haven't made the decision you're making, and so they're afraid they're going to lose you. And I find this a lot with relationships that have addiction in common, where a person in the relationship decides to make the change, but the other person gets worse. And I think that's a sad component, because as you increase your emotional awareness, your sobriety, your connection with who you are away from that person, kind of naturally. And you don't want to, I apologize, you don't want to dumb yourself down to that level again to try and get them to come with you. Either they're going to come with you and match it, or they will do everything they can in their power to bring you back down because maybe they're not ready yet. And that's always a sad situation when that happens. And sometimes people on the outside will look at that for you and they're just keeping you sick. Yes, and they don't want to lose you either. And so those kind of decisions, when people make the decisions, Marissa, it's always like blown away and inspired by their willingness to like say, I love you, but if I stay here, we'll love each other to death. Yeah. Literally.
And that's hard because you love somebody. Or it's also habit and where you've been and, relationships and time you put into a certain relationship that's really difficult to let go of.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about participants on Team Addict to Athlete is that through the process of trusting a team, engaging in the principle-based, mindsets that we teach, you are strong enough to rise above whatever's troubling you. Mm-hmm. I've seen people train themselves and lean into, marathon training, ultra marathon training, triathlon, pickleball contests, volleyball, softball, all these things. And they realize that stuff takes an abundant amount of energy and commitment and time. And you may look at it as it's no big deal, but it is. You're strong enough to rise above this.
Absolutely.
For those that don't have that mindset, Marissa, how do you teach that? How do you show them that they're strong enough to rise above it if they don't themselves believe in what they're capable of?
I think sometimes the first step is look at someone else who's done it. Mm-hmm. If there's anyone else in the world that's already done it, right there's you, it's possible. even if it's, I can't get sober. I've never, been an addict too long. I've been doing this too long. There's someone out there that's done it.
Yeah.
And once you can start looking at other people, it shows you that there's a way, there's a path, there's something you can do, and it's not impossible. So I think surround yourself with people that are doing things you want to be doing, and you're going to improve immediately right there.
I like that. So listeners, also with what Marissa just said, through the process of change, through the process of growth and the process of recovery, it's kind of a funny thing because sometimes you're going to have to just rough it and really just kind of risk it to be able to obtain it. What I mean by that is sometimes you have to just have enough, I guess, faith, enough courage to open the door and go in.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer it takes 5 seconds of courage to do absolutely anything. And if you allow yourself to get caught up and stuck in, I don't know, maybe the mindset of this scarcity, you're not going to be able to make it happen.
You have a mental block like that, you'll never be able to get through, ever. That just, you know what I mean? And those are probably more difficult to get through than a physical block of, whether it's withdrawals or even if it's a physical, experience, a race that you're trying to get through. It's mental blocks that block us. If you are just stuck that I'm an addict, once an addict, always an addict, and that's all I'm going to be, it's going to be really difficult to break that.
Yeah.
Because you just assume that that's it for you. There's not any other possibilities.
I like that concept. When I say sometimes you have to risk it, that's also like leaving old thoughts behind. One of the things I know that we really kind of got slapped with, especially at the beginning, is our premise of not identifying or labeling ourselves addicts. That was such a new thing 11 years ago that we had people from the other side of that discussion saying that we were doing it wrong. We were hurting people. And I'm a firm believer that we're not hurting people. We're having people grow. If you are only one item of a personality or characteristic, an addict, that's all you'll ever be. But you got to remember, listeners, you're also a mother and father and brother and daughter and son and spouse, employee, artist, athlete. You're so many other attributes.
Yeah.
So why do we focus on that one negative? And I'm a little bit hesitant when people wear as a badge of honor, I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, but it's a part of you. If I still labeled myself after 25, 26 years of sobriety as an addict, I would be doing myself an incredible disservice.
Yeah.
Because I've been able to live life free from that bondage.
Yeah.
But back in my mind, I'm an addict, I can't do this. I'm an addict, I can't be there. I'm an addict, I'm an addict, I'm an addict. I would miss out on so many things based off of fear and scarcity. But what I've learned is that it's still there, but it's a very, does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And it really is all inside of your head. So how loud is it? I know some people look at it as being a helpful tool because it reminds them to always be aware and always be awake that, I need to pay attention, or I could slip back into old behaviors and old habits. And that makes sense.
Until when, right?
Yeah,
because I can sit here and say, I'm a learning disability. I'm a learning disability. I'm a learning disability. I have a learning disability, but am I that?
No.
No, because look what I'm able to accomplish, even though and because of.
Master's degree, right?
And listeners, I know that's a hard concept, but failure, literally, how you learn to move forward. And when I put myself in those situations and I tried to play that card with Marissa, I have learning disabilities. I can't do this. You corrected me, and you're like, there's another way then.
Yeah. It means your brain works differently than somebody else's, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. And so I think you've got to be cautious on what we label ourselves. I understand the premise behind it. I know why Bill and Bob coined it. I have huge admiration for them. Those steps they created are fantastic. I get why, but we don't have to always be. We are human beings that grow and mature and learn. How sad would it be if you just plant the flag and that's all you'll ever know?
Yeah.
Because there's things that I would never have accomplished if I would have had a mentality or mindset. Does it make sense?
It opened doors for you, right?
Completely. everyone has their own challenges, and you're going to find that no matter what, sobriety, addiction, what have you. Sobriety brings upon a lot of challenges as well. Responsibilities, expectations, wants, dreams, desires. All of this has a specific challenge to it. What we'll find, though, is that those of you who have walked through that valley of death and addiction, on the other side, you are so well versed, so well trained that you can use it for your gain. You can be a world-class person in addiction because you've been a world-class addict.
Yeah.
And when you flip the script, that's all you truly need to do, right?
Yeah.
And I really do believe sometimes we get caught up in a mindset of scarcity because we forget who we authentically are.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was about a year ago, we interviewed a gentleman on a cast, Michael Brody-Waite. Now I can't remember, he's written a book about addicts make the best businessmen. He struggled with addiction for a long time, years and years, and has now turned it around. And man, that guy is like this number one, like, entrepreneur and businessman. And he just thrives. And he says, I only got by using all of my, quote, addict attributes and just, flipping the script and doing it the opposite way. And now, he's an amazing author and businessman and family man, but he says it's possible. And
well, think about it.
Makes him better.
Think about the level of understanding and what that truly means. I know of people, myself included, that have gone to great lengths to end up at the end of the day high.
Yeah.
If I woke up in the morning with no money or no means, but I really wanted it, I did what it took to get it. I know people that have followed that same path. Now imagine flipping the script to do something positive, to find that job, to get that degree, to train for that sport.
That drive and that grit
Good
to
grief.
Get what you want when you want it, you can do anything.
So then why do you think so many people throw in the towel and they fail to believe that they have that capability? It's the premise of, if I gave you 5 minutes to make your life as bad as possible, could you? Yeah. If I give yourself 5 minutes to make your life as amazing as possible, could you do that? The same principle applies. Yeah?
I think sometimes it's our negative self-talk. What voice is loud enough inside our head? Is it things from growing up? Is it maybe mom, dad? Maybe it was teachers that just knocked you down, and you're letting those voices rule your brain. Get them out. Clear out that clutter. They should not have any room in your head, because what they said and what they told you is not real. It's not true. It's fake. And don't let that person that's ruined your life continue ruining it anymore. I think it also comes down to the other piece of, what hard do you choose? Is it hard being an addict? Absolutely. Yeah. Is it hard being a successful business? Absolutely. In your own way. But which kind of hard do you want?
Very good point. I want us to also understand that being kind to yourself is a key to this. You got to remember that your addiction has held a very specific purpose in your heart. And you didn't use just for the sake of using. It's covering up and it's coping with something that hurts. Being kind to yourself first and foremost, and knowing that through the process of change means that you're going to go through a little bit of pain, or maybe a lot of bit of pain.
And many times that has saved your life.
Yeah,
literally.
And I think we can't dumb that down.
Yeah,
it did me. There was a point in time in my own addiction that I had a choice to make. Either I use this or I end it. And I got so close, I decided, well, I'll use this first, and then we'll see. And that's what kept me alive.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Greg Ferguson, same thing. Greg Ferguson, who is a talk show host, and for many years, he talks about a time where it was when Britney Spears was in the media for some of her crazy antics, and people were making fun of her. And he said, wait a minute, you got to be careful with that guy. You don't know what she's going through. It's easy to point fingers. And he said this, he talks about this, where he said it was Christmas Eve, and he was planning on, from a bridge, killing himself. But before he went, he stopped to a bar and a pub, and he got himself a drink. The bartender noticed him, started talking to him, and kept giving him drinks, to the point where Craig passed out, woke up the next day, decided that he'd try it again, but it saved his life. He went to that pub, and he didn't just awake and be sober. He had many times where he felt that way, but alcohol saved his life, to the point where he's like, I don't need this anymore. Yeah. And I'm okay now, and I can make this happen. If
it kept kept him alive long enough till he was a different choice.
And those of you who have loved ones with addictions, you have to remember that as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more than a loved one, or a child, their loved one to be cured and to be away from it. We got to keep them alive long enough to make that true decision.
Yeah.
I think I'm glad you pointed that out.
Well, and I think it's like you've said too, like your addiction saved you from some severe trauma. It was a coping skill that kept you alive through horrible childhood, poverty, neglect, other types of trauma until you were ready to face it and to address those issues and get yourself in a safer environment that didn't need to continue happening anymore.
And one thing we teach on Team Addict to Athlete specifically about that too, listeners, is that your gratitude improves your situation. And what I mean by that is it's kind of hard to be grateful for experiences that bring pain.
Yeah.
Through the process of healing, you can look back at that, and instead of saying, why me? Why did that happen to me? You can literally look yourself in the mirror and say, why not me? You're strong enough to handle it. You're strong enough to carry it. It happened to you, unfortunately, but you don't have to be the one that carries it for the rest of your life. You can let that stuff go.
Yeah.
I'm actually, to a degree, grateful for some of the experiences I've had because it's made me really understand and comprehend how to stay on this path of sobriety, of healing, and then to be able to carry that message. Rough times that you go through will help you appreciate the good times. I look back at it now and I think, I know people that start using later in life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that in my own world that have been members of the church I belong to, once they leave the church, they all jump into a pile of alcohol and marijuana and all these things. They start partying. Oh yeah, life is great. You have no idea what door you're opening.
Yeah, the potential.
You have zero idea. And when you have that mindset and you have that history and you make that choice, you're opening yourself up for one hell of a wake-up call. And I don't care who you are. When that happens, you don't even know the darkness that's approaching you.
Yeah.
And so when I see this, I see people that are doing this now because, oh, the church made me do. The church didn't make you
Free
anything.
now. Okay.
You could have done that before.
You were free before, but is that really what you want to choose to engage in? Like, gosh, the dangers of addiction to me aren't worth the risk.
Being so alone and so scared of life and literally contemplating maybe this is it and the devil is there at your doorstep. Many of you who get into this later on, you have no idea what's coming. Be very careful.
Yeah.
I appreciate my history because of that. I value my sobriety so much because of what it's done for me on a spiritual level, physical level, emotional level. We got to be careful. On Team Addict to Athlete, we also like to have you guys out there celebrate even the smallest of victories that you're challenged with. When we run and we get goals, that's fantastic. That's an instant kind of gratification for work that you put in to finish the event. But even getting up, making your bed, carrying on a conversation, being able to, feel the measure of what you're doing, that's where the real work is. So we wanted to just take a little bit of time to share with you the foundations of Team Addict to Athlete.
Some of our philosophy.
Marissa tells me the locksmiths here. People can see you texting underneath your thing, so I don't know why you're trying to be sneaky about it. But listeners, those are some of the principles that we use here on Team Addict to Athlete. And, I really think that if you want to feel the full measure of it, you've got to participate. You got to check us out.
Yeah.
You got to feel of the measure of what our peer mentors are doing, our coaches are. Yeah. This isn't my team. It's not Marissa's team. This is your team. We get to be the lucky ones who are the mouthpiece of it, but it operates, I would say, 99% off of others.
Yeah.
So check us out. Jump on addictoathlete.org for more information.
Tons of resources, races, events, family things, some of our free content, podcasts, lots of information is all on addictathlete.org. Our contact information, please reach out, submit questions. We hope to get this back on going more regularly on One with Coach Blu and to be able to figure it all out and help you where we can.
And real quick, while we do this, jump on that website, addictathlete.org, and check out our open registration for our race in September, the Proxy Run.
5K, we have about 4 more
Mhm.
four more weeks, 3 more weeks.
3 more weeks.
Please get on, get registered, get signed up to get the shirts. The shirt design this year is incredible. We're going to need to order them soon. So if you want to guarantee one, get on and get registered. It's only $10 to register, $15 if you want a shirt. And come out, you can do it virtually, and we can send you your bib and wristbands. But join us, run for yourself, a loved one who's struggling, or someone who's passed on from addiction or mental health.
Yeah. So I think listeners, check it out, see what you can do. I really appreciate you all being here. This podcast that we're filming live today will also be on your whatever platform you use in the future, in the next couple of days. But until then, please go turn your mess into a message.